Hey, good morning, everyone, and thanks everyone for joining in to the another series of webinar which TeamLease has been conducting since the first wave of pandemic which hit us. Uh, so in this series, we discuss about the current challenges and how the world of work has changed for all of us. Uh, and for that discussion, today's topic, what we have chosen is talent strategies for the hybrid workforce or the hybrid world. Now, just to give a context, it is evident that hybrid workforce and workplace models, they are here to stay. Post the first pandemic, the first wave which hit us, and now with the ongoing second wave, and there's a discussion of the third wave which might hit us, companies are looking to adopt new workforce models that will include the gig workforce, the contractual and apprenticeship, along with the permanent workforce. And all this put together will be creating a hybrid workforce models for the companies. While the social distancing norms are there continuing for the foreseeable future, companies are putting in plans to create hybrid workforce models that have a certain portion of the workforce operating virtually. Support function roles such as your human resource, finance, legal, marketing are increasingly considered to operate in the hybrid model. Now, to discuss on this topic for today, we have an esteemed group of panelists who have come in and joined us. I would like to take a minute and introduce each one of them. So we have with us Ekta Puri. She is the Associate Director HR at Rapido. She is an engineer turned HR professional. He comes with 12 plus years of experience in HR strategy, business partnering, performance and talent management. He has worked with leading companies including Deluxe Entertainment Services Group, India Radio Ventures, Jena Small Finance Bank, Allscripts, G Capital, Raymond, Pyramid Enterprises, and iSoft. Welcome to the discussion, Ekta. Then we have Arpita Shah. She is the head HR at DHL. Her career, which is 15 years plus, has various expertise. To name a few: talent acquisition management, employee engagement, retention, people program, process improvement, competency modeling. She has worked with leading companies including Ola, Grab House, X5 Research Center, ANZ IT, WindDrive Technologies. He has also volunteered for COVID International National Task Force on a voluntary project basis. Last but not the least, we have Saurabh Garg. Saurabh is a hospitality management graduate from Robert Gordon University, UK. He has postgraduated from IMT Ghaziabad, having a rich 20 plus years of retail experience in international markets and as well as domestic markets. For the last 12 years, he's been linked with the Landmark India Group, and he's been instrumental in turning loss-making territories into profit generators. Currently, he leads a team of 2,000 plus people who are working along with him. I formally welcome all of you. Unfortunately, we had another panelist, Dorothy. She had a medical emergency today, so she couldn't join. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you, Ekta. Thank you, Arpita, for joining me. Before we start to the participant, so you guys see a Q&A tab. Please put your set of questions there. We will pick your questions at the end. Only put your questions there. Don't put it on the chat window because that's where we will be using to pick up your set of questions, whatever questions you will have. Now, with the topic being clear to all of us, would like to start. So this new trends, Saurabh, if I want to bring you in and ask you this, how are you viewing these trends that are emerging in the workforce and the workplace with it today, the way things are changing?
Hi, Ajoy. Thanks for first of all inviting, and it's a sheer pleasure. Thank you very much. And it's so nice to also have a panel like this. Very esteemed. Thank you. Okay, so now coming to the topic, Ajoy, what I feel is this pandemic has actually been really is actually played a role of catalyst, right, for a lot of these corporate houses to rethink, re-innovate most of the talent acquiring strategies, engagement levels, the whole bit of HR related activities, and just not that, in fact, the whole cost centers, right? But people are in the core integral core part of any activities we do in our life, in our corporate world. So therefore it has really played a catalyst role, right? And I feel thanks to the work from home, recent development over a period of last 9 months, people are so used to of it. I think it is indeed opening up a lot of new avenues, lot of new opportunities for both, for organization and as well as also for the individual, the professionals, right? Let's look at what it brings for both of them. How I see is that for organization, it brings, first of all, on priority, brings a great amount of recruitment flexibility. I think never ever, corporates and organizations have enjoyed that kind of flexibility. In fact, it sorts in one shot a lot of problems. If part of the people or part of the talent has to be outsourced precisely. And the second important point is that it also gives you or to look at a lot of rationalizations in the cost, your building cost, your infrastructure cost, that's a lot of savings actually, which the organization actually achieves it by making people work from their respective locations. Also, then if you really look at it, it also helps organization to hire talent for a stipulated time, right? If let's say if an activity or a task is assigned or need to be achieved in a particular stipulated time, you need not hire a professional for across 12 months and take the burden on the cash flow. So you can actually hire the talent to perform that task. And so what you do is basically you're able to then enhance the productivity, because now you can hire the best talent in the availability of the best talent is there for you in the market. You can get them on board, get the work done, and done with it. And I think it then therefore you don't really have to continue with them over a period of time. Now, what it brings on board for the individual is obviously a good amount of flexibility in choosing the hours they have to work, right? They can be flexible to 1 hour, to 9 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever is the capacity. Also, it helps them to pick the choice of work they want to do, right? They need not associate themselves to particular only one kind of work, day in, night out, go every day, do that, perform that task. I think they can be more versatile when it comes to do different things, pick different things. And also last but very important is it also gives them the ability to enhance the income levels, because by engaging themselves in, let's say, the various gig kind of an opportunities and get going. So I think it really helps both side to really grow and to explore all the potential and opportunities exist in the market. So that's what my view is.
Thanks, Saurabh. So if I want to
Sachin, I am
sorry, yeah. So Arpita, if I would like to take your view on these trends and how is it that it is emerging in the workforce and the workplace which you are leading right now. How are things changing for you, Arpita?
Thanks, Ajoy. Adding to a lot that Saurav has already spoken about, I see a lot of change happening in the way the functions that we see in the organizations are changing. We see a lot of digitization, we see a lot of automation which is coming into picture right now. So when we talk about the way people are communicating, it has changed and it is changing as we speak. So a lot of tasks which were collaborating, while there are researchers that state that about 50 to 60% of the people say that their productivity levels as far as the collaborative work is concerned has not gone down. However, the tasks which were very easily done in the conference rooms is now getting done through communications. And there are times when there is communication lags which are happening. So people are finding out different ways to deal with those situations and make do for the lack of in-person communications in the process. So these are very important critical areas which we see as major changes in the emerging trend as far as COVID-19 is concerned. And to mitigate these kind of issues, the organizations need to also come step forward to ensure that they are able to provide the digital infrastructure and the right kind of tools to their workforce so that they can perform at the best of their levels of productivity. While this is one area or one aspect of the work, I also see a lot of need to work in the area of mental health management of the employees. So that is also one of the major things that I have personally seen in my organization, as well as in the spectrum of my communication outside, that a lot of people right now are really stressed out. The different kind of stress, those are internal and external kind of stress, and those are actually leading to quick burnouts within the workforce. So a lot of organizations, including ourselves, we are taking different steps to ensure that there is help available with each employee. And we ensure that there are one-on-ones with managers which are happening on a regular basis so that we understand what an employee is going through. And the different other measures that we are taking towards health and safety of the employees is until the time that we were continuing to work from offices, we were ensuring that and the safety protocols are being met at each office and workforce. We being an e-commerce company, we also ensured that the workforce, the warehouses were very safe. And the other initiatives that we have taken is to ensure that every employee has a basic COVID insurance policy. And yeah, I think health, safety, mental wellness, these are very important areas that organizations are right now focusing on.
Okay, thanks for those comments. So when you say that it's on the mental health, I completely agree. I think right now the state of affairs, what each employee is going through, is a lot of stress. While definitely from work is apart from the work, the near and dear ones getting affected, and to manage and to run around, even if one person get affected in the family, to isolate themselves and to take care of those basic things, and how us as organization play that important role in educating the people on the basic 4-5 steps to be done time and again. Thanks, Arpita, for those comments. So coming to you, Ekta, anything different you are doing from whatever we have heard? Anything else is there which can be an add-on and which can be a learning for the people also who have joined the panel? Anything you have seen different, or you guys are doing different in Rapido?
Sure, Ajay. So, well, I think most of the part the two of the panelists has kind of already covered. One section which I can probably touch upon is on the work-life balance during this time. So this has something which has kind of have taken focus over a period of time from past 1 year. We've been working, all of us work from home. There have been kind of these mental wellness activities, holistic employee wellness programs is what has been focused by the companies a lot. When we say work-life balance, there are also some of these trends, or rather some of the inputs which keeps coming, that people do say that while we're working from home, we are more productive. But at the same time, sometimes one part of it which gets missed and not really looked at is it that when we say productive, are we also stressed at the same in time. So that part is what companies are now focusing and taking care of. So definitely one such thing which we have looked at recently is the holistic employee wellness programs, where we are investing in some of the programs which is not just related to mind wellness, it is to taking care of the food, nutrition, and to do with the physical activities. Some of the programs where we push people to indulge in these physical activities at least once in a while. And at the same time, there are these quarantine packages, post-COVID healthcare packages. So all of that has, I believe, has taken a priority at this point in time, because when we say that we are hiring people from the outside, one important thing which also become important for us at the same time is how are we taking care of the people who are already there with us. So that's where I believe the focus also has been.
Sir, coming back to you. So when we look at performance management, that's also getting impacted with these trends now. There are talks of qualitative measures rather than quantitative, and also focus on completion of tasks irrespective of how and where it is done. Like there is no work-life balance. How do you see performance management process changing now?
Okay. So so see, getting full value from this highly skilled people, it actually requires more than simply hiring them. It's a big process in itself. And you talk about performance management. First of all, performance management to me is very different to performance appraisal. In fact, appraisal is just a small offshoot of performance management. For me, performance management is a process of basically do 4 activities. It is about identifying, it is about measuring, it's about managing, and it's about developing the performance of every individual in the organization. As long as all organizations are genuinely really taking care of an employee by first of all do the right goal setting, right? It's really important that we do the right goal setting. Break down the task into smaller achievable goals, keep an horizon of 1 month to 3 months, and continue performance management at every quarter level. And need to be co-created. This need to be co-created with the individuals, right? And then in the process, need to identify if any training and development needs which arise. I think that need to be fulfilled as and when it comes. In between, it's not about the traditional way of only monitoring or managing them. It's about coaching also. At a leadership level, it is far more important now that every leader wear a hat of being a coach, because it's a very difficult time. And it's all the way very new for everyone, be it employee or employer. This work from home, working from remote, performing tasks digitally more than being face to face, discussing strategies more digitally. So therefore, it's really important that constant coaching is given, constant coaching is provided to every individual. And obviously then over a period of time, help them perform better, develop better in the task what they are doing. So performance management is a big process now in itself, and each and every dimension of performance management is a work of a team in itself right now.
Got it, sir. So Ekta, if I may ask you, so how should HR leaders adapt to these change across the employee life cycle? Now, let's talk about with the hiring. How are these trends impacting talent acquisitions? Have you seen any change in the trend now? Ekta, sorry, you're on mute.
Sure. So talent acquisition is now not just limited to the active hiring these days. It's actually evolving. It's focusing on the passive hiring concept, building pool and network for people in outside industry, inviting these people once in a while for few of the discussions internally within the companies, focusing more on building relationship, building strong network. At the same time, apparently there has always been a concept to hire people within the industry. I think talent acquisition has somewhere working with the stakeholders to hire people from different industries as well, experimenting on some of these new jobs with the stakeholders. Uh, there has recently been also a capture, I think there were articles around that in India Today as well, where there are people who have been hired within the industries, and there are people who have been, I mean, there are posts which has gone on some of these websites where people have applied from offshore as well. So some of the projects which is now comes with the fixed term contract, there are universities like Duke University and some more of it where from where the people are applying for these projects, and that's what is being introduced by the talent acquisition team. So I would say that their role is now more evolving.
So, Arpita, how about L&D? With the higher percentage of temp staff and increased virtual workforce, how are L&D plans being evolving now?
See, at the outset, I believe right now, as the trends are emerging and times are changing in a way that we don't foresee things to go back to the old normal. We need to get into the scope of embracing the new normal, and that is how the future looks to me right now. In that purview, I would say the responsibility, or rather the HR leaders right now are more under the microscope than any other time in the past. So HR leaders need to take measures and steps to ensure that we are building a future ready organization for us, which not only creates the wealth of human resource for the times to come, but also which envisages the need of the current business requirements and trends which are necessary to be considered at present. Given the context, I think learning and development is again very, very digital right now. What happened during the earlier times as seminars or different kind of training interventions, which were more periodic, it's now necessarily to be a part of our everyday process or everyday work. So learning and development can be from how to manage stress at workplace to upskilling and reskilling people. There can be a concept of uh, acquiring skills which are adjacent to the skills that the workforce already has. Figuring out what kind of critical skills that an organization requires, and then figuring out how those skill gaps can be mitigated. Basically, a buy or build kind of an approach. Whether the workforce which is currently there can quickly reskill or upskill themselves to be able to learn the required skill sets and be a wholesome team at large, or to hire people from outside. Now, whether to hire people from outside, if hiring people from outside is the need of the hour, then figuring out whether to hire contingent workforce or permanent staff is again the second question. So eventually what it boils down to figuring out what the organization's internal and external capabilities are and what is the requirement of the organization at that point in time. Now, coming back to the specifics of learning and development, as I was mentioning, that the need is to be able to find the right set of solutions, which not only help mitigating the current gaps, but also to be able to provide a future ready organization. Adding to that, I would say that digital interventions is very, very important right now. That is the only way, that is the only viable option available at this point in time. I would say learning and development interventions are more key, not only for the permanent workforce, but also for the contingent workforce, which is to be seen as more essential workforce as we move into the next stages of organization development.
Okay. I think upskilling is what is the need of the hour. And with most of us being at home, I think we should all be picking up few of courses where we can pick up, learn short skills, which will be needed and which is a need for the future too.
Absolutely. It is
Saurabh,
also necessary for every person to uh, stay as the need of the hour, to not become obsolete as time passes.
agreed, completely agree. Saurabh, so if I may ask, so if work from home is going to be a future option, do you think the infrastructure in India is sufficient to provide the bandwidth needed to access various systems to enable the work from home option?
See, at present, Ajoy, I feel yeah, I feel there is a amount of challenge people are seeing when it comes to battling it out with the infra at their homes. But what I understand is that a lot of organizations are also trying their best to up the game when it comes to their own infra by helping them, giving them a lot of BSN, lot of network support and stability, lot of resources, a lot of equipments. So with that, I think it is not only about infra support. It's also at some point it is also the know-how. It's also the practice or knowing how to use it is also a big challenge. Sometimes we see people are not so much of used to of using these tools. So at some bit of training and some bit of hand holding is really also important. So it's like both. So while you have that as one challenge, you also have another challenge which is completely in your control, where companies can or organizations can be really mindful about it and preempt it and go actively and help them make modules, tell them how to use it, right? I mean, multiple things. It's not just going to help them, their employees deliver better, but at some point it is also going to help each and every individual get groomed to use these digital tools, because I absolutely agree to what Arpita said. Way forward future is as much as possible about adapting to this digital tools, and therefore it is so important that we get used to it, people get used to it, and more number of people within the teams are more digital savvy. It is going to really help up the performance overall as a team. So while there is a challenge, but there are a bit of those things which is completely under our control, and together as a team, when we have all put together the plan and apply ourselves, I think those can be eliminated to greater extent.
So there is an increasing tendency for people to socialize and communicate via digital devices rather than through real life contacts. Now, this can easily lead to a sense of disconnect and isolation. So how should companies respond to mitigate such changes?
Sure. So I believe at this point in time, we all been working, we have kind of been dependent on these digital resources. I mean, there is hardly any scope for people, left out to have that sort of physical connect. But still, at this point in time, what companies can do, or what companies, there are companies who are practicing it. Once in a while, when the second pandemic has not really hit us that bad, the companies were kind of planning to catch up once in a while. They used to, figure out a place where they can go and have at least a face-to-face time with teams. But now, since we are again back to what we were last year initially, we are still dependent on the digital platform or digital resources. But still, the ways at present, what I can share, what exactly we are doing, we've kind of set aside some of the budgets for our team. And we've asked them that once in a quarter, they have to utilize the budget. There is a specific HR team which is assisting them to utilize the budget. There are times wherein we arrange for either some of those laughing therapy sessions for them. We invite these top comedians, we invite these dancers to engage with these guys. And with that, we see that somewhere that dialogues are happening within the team. What we really want to happen. At the same time, we invite the families as well. Apparently, with the digital time, that's actually a plus, that's a merit, which was not happening earlier, because when we used to catch up in office, it used to be only the employees. To reach to their families, it used to be hardly once in a while when we used to appreciate people through letters. But now it has become easy, and somewhere we are adopting to it. We're kind of adopting, okay, there are family members. If there are noise, if there is a background music there, we adapt to that as well and say that, okay, that's fine, that's all right, because end of the day, there are employees and they are the employee families. So somewhere those adjustments, those fixes have kind of automatically taken place in everyone's mind. And apparently, I would say, even though we are connecting digitally, we are finding out new ways to have that connection with people. And I think there's nothing bad in that, because somewhere we're trying to adapt the change, what we all are currently facing. With that, I believe these three trends are all okay.
So recently, Swiggy has announced a 4-day week, work week for the month of May. And I was also reading that Zerodha also said that post 6 o'clock there would be nothing which will be work related, and they are trying to kill. So it would be a very clear start time and time. And so I think these are the new ways what companies are trying to come up and help employees in every possible way in today's scenario.
Sure.
So, Arpita, if I may ask you, do you think the policies or rules of hiring will change? And if so, what will be the changes?
What I see here, Joy, as far as the hiring is concerned, I see that the talent pool, as was earlier discussed, is completely geographically agnostic right now. You can hire anybody from any place in the world. And I suppose apart from that flexibility, which is coming into the talent acquisition forte, also necessary is the fact that we embrace some amount of technological intervention there as well, with the addition of ethical AI coming into place, wherein we are able to identify the right set of profiles and to be able to screen through the right set through the set of profiles available to us, and to be able to make decisions which is irrespective of any kind of biases. Having said that, it is also, I think it is also becoming more and more important that we start thinking beyond skill sets, we start thinking beyond roles and start thinking on the lines of skill sets. Roles are slowly becoming obsolete, and it is the skill set. There was a recent survey which I was reading, I think it was a Gartner survey, which said that around 76% of the people of today's, as in the 76% of current workforce, says that they have been in doing roles which are very far or very different from what was mentioned to them as job description at the time when they were hired. Having said that, the organizational charts, of course, will continue to exist, but at the same time, it is more going to be more of a skill-based autonomy as far as organizations are concerned. That is going to be coming into the picture and is there to stay. Now, coming to policies, yes, we are talking about policies. We are talking about a changing workforce, a changing hybrid workforce, and the environment which is associated to that. In my view, now a lot of policies need to be created with keeping the contingent workforce or the gig workforce as in the center stage, which was earlier not the case. Earlier, we used to have policies majorly looking at the permanent staff, but now I think there has to be a hybrid policy making as far as the workforce is also concerned, and there has to be a specific set of policies which would be governing not only the permanent staff but also the contingent staff. And that could have the policies could be all encompassing. It could be from a specific leave policy to bring your own device kind of a policy. The policies need to also be looking into the information and cybersecurity part of the organizational setup as well, because those complexities are becoming more and more larger as we speak.
True. So Saurabh, so large number of jobs currently in the gig and the temporary economy that requires no special skills or knowledge. So do you think that there will be no more skilled specialized role that will move into these models?
Ajoy, sorry, your voice was breaking. Can you please repeat your question?
Sure. So what I was asking is that the jobs which are currently in the gig and the temporary economy, that requires no special skills or knowledge. So do you think that there will be more skilled or specialized roles that will be moving into these models?
Okay, so Ajoy, I feel the gig model can actually solve both the problems. It may also solve problem at a very base level of the pyramid of the organization structure, where you really do not need beyond a point very high skilled manpower expertise. You don't need SMEs. Suppose let's take a retail store environment. You need basically smart boys and girls who can communicate with the customer, who can understand product, who can understand how to sell, and who can understand how to service customer once customer comes back, let's say for an exchange, and also that the whole cycle, whole customer experience is not really see the challenge. So I think that is a role which needs some amount of skill, but it is not an SME. So it can be nicely can be achieved by hiring a gig workforce. And with a constant, on ground training, development, audit, time to time audit, I think this can be achieved through hiring a gig workforce. Now look at another side of the whole spectrum, or look at this from a point of view of an SME. Actually, the advantage of gig model is that precisely you suppose there is a work which is to be done by an SME, right? The traditional way of doing things is that you go out in a market, and more higher the degree of SME, more time you're going to spend scouting a talent, finding it, getting him, spend time to get them on board, and then stay with them for, let's say, I don't know how many years. While the job maybe at that point of time is required only maybe a very expertise job which only need 3 months, 6 months intervention. I think that's exactly where gig can help you. Because gig can also go beyond the age. You need not be within the age of 58 or whatever, retirement. You can even hire people beyond that age, and you can use that experience and seniority in the system, in your own system, and build the value around it. So I think this works both sides. It depends how and when customer, organizations really want to use it. So I look at gig as a 360 solution. 360 in a way of talent acquisition. Yeah. So I think it helps both ways.
So Ekta, so until a few years back, we largely had permanent workforce in organization. Now with these new models, do you see the percentage of permanent workforce for certain industry declining to less than majority in the long run?
Yeah, so Ajay, I would say that yes, it's very specific to certain industries, not all. Most of the roles in the companies are still the full-time roles where people need to continue to be on the fixed employment, on the regular employment, I would say. But there are still roles which the companies wants to completely outsource as a process itself. They want to probably outsource in a way that only the project management or the process excellence parameters is going to be in control somewhere where they're going to monitor that part. But rest of it is all outsourced as a business outsourcing. At the same time, there are also the roles which they comes with the set of fixed term, wherein let's say there is a senior role where we want someone to come and set up something for us, and these are some of the roles earlier which used to be at a very junior level. Now companies are actually trying it at the senior level as well, where the earlier the senior level roles used to be for the regular term. Now these senior level roles are also coming with that fixed term of 6 months to 1 year, where they are expected to perform, they're expected to result out in certain outcome. And then based on that, they have a certain variable part of their compensation. So this is how some of these roles I see are emerging outside in the industry.
So Arpita, so with the advent of technology and emergence of Generation Z of workforce, post the COVID breakout, is the human interface going to increasingly elevate all HR touch points? If I may give you some example, L&D, organization development, performance management system, etc. So how can organization ensure the continuity of human touch in all people-related transactions?
Joy, in my view, that is a very, very critical thing. And unless organizations are really committed to it, it would be really difficult for organizations to be able to achieve what you just mentioned. So here, I would once again say, here comes in the HR leaders' intervention, a very strong intervention which is required to make it very clear to the leadership. As far as our Indian economy is concerned, I still see that majority of, if not all, majority of the organization leaders are still of the opinion that productivity is lost if people are working remotely. Right now, of course, this is a scenario wherein there is no other option left. So this is the only viable option for business continuity, and people are working from homes. However, if the way I look at it, once the situation starts becoming a little better or going towards normal, the organizations might want to bring back the workforce to the offices. Now then, there would be different kind of discussions as to whether the employees are really comfortable coming back. Are there people who are, with some comorbidities who might not be very comfortable coming back? People need to travel using the public transport. They might not be very comfortable coming back. So that's another part of the discussion. Now, with the background which I just mentioned, that the leadership might be very keen on bringing back the workforce to the offices. In that perspective, things do not really change much. However, with the fact that we need to embrace the new normal, and that is the only way forward as I see. There needs to be a very strong commitment from the leadership towards embracing the new normal, towards being being open to embrace the hybrid workforce, wherein there would be a part of the organization which would continue to work from home and a part would be probably working from office. So there could be, a heightened level of what should I say, perceptual issue that can come in, that people who are working from office are more productive, or people who are working from home, they are not really being thought about. So all these interventions which we spoke about, the L&D, the performance management, the performance appraisals, in all of these HR interventions, there need to be a very strong and bold underlined factor that we need to, with a hybrid workforce, we need to have very clear indicators or very clear processes which ensure that the processes are meant to be covering not only the permanent staff, the contingent staff as well, not only the people who are working from office, but also the people who are working remotely. That is the only way that all of these HR interventions can eventually turn out to be successful. And for the organization to grow and thrive in future, I suppose there cannot be two ways to it. The only way forward is to have, an all-encompassing uh, policy, process, and standards where every person is benchmarked on the basis of their capabilities and outcomes that they bring onto the table. It is not about the output that the person gives. It is not about the kind of 9 to 5 sort of a working style anymore. It is not about so there cannot be a one size fits all kind of a process as far as any of these interventions are concerned.
True. Sort of 2020, if you actually look at Q1, Q2 was a complete washout in terms of sales, in terms of any target which a company would have set for itself. While Q3, there was certain momentum which came in Q4 also. At least with TeamLease, we saw that there was a good momentum, and we were very hopeful towards Q1, and then Q2. We felt that the growth will really happen. So, what I wanted to understand from you is, when do we go back to pre-COVID levels of growth in this country? 2 quarters away, 3 quarters away, or you think it will take much longer than that?
Okay, so Ajoy, at this point of time, trust me, everybody wants answer of this question. Yeah, that's something which we all want to know, when we can go back to pre-COVID level. Well, having said that, we can only understand this because it's a second wave, and we have seen what happened in the first wave. Quarter 1 and Quarter 2 was, you're right, a complete washout. However, what really surprised most of us us at that point of time was that we saw a very good amount of, and I'm saying overall, from a retail fraternity point of view, we saw a good amount of recovery which happened in Quarter 3 and much better in Quarter 4, right? And that was a time when things were not really changed much. Hopes were not so positive because vaccination, all that came into picture much later during Quarter 4 itself. Now, however, the second wave is far more lethal. But having said that, you have a positivity, you have hopes, and those hopes are that we have vaccination in place. We have a plan of vaccination in place. A lot of corporate houses are also coming forward and making sure that all the employees, their immediate spouse and dependents, dependent parents, and everybody getting vaccinated, right? And that's one part of it. And they are also see, the past trend says that there is a fatigue which seeps in because of the lockdown, right? So when the lockdown slowly started lifting in last year, we saw a lot of people were looking for an opportunity to come out. They were either wanting to go and take a vacation, or they wanted to just go to the mall, spend a weekend. There was a rush. There was this pent up demand. There was this people who really wanted to go out, and so I think, and all of that in the light when there was no vaccination. Now in this year, we are looking for a situation. I'm right now not really looking at a third wave. Yeah, if third wave happens, I think God forbid, but if that happens, there will be a repeat of what is happening right now. But suppose if there is no third wave and vaccination is able to control the situation, then I feel that the recovery is going to be good. Is going to be, I think Quarter 3 should be better than last year Quarter 3, and Quarter 4 proportionately should be better than last year Quarter 4. But having said that, it's largely a play of a time. Basically, we'll have to see how it comes. But yes, it's important right now. This is the time. This COVID has given us an opportunity to all of us to change the mindset, and that changing mindset is not just happened at a lot of measures which come into play when such a pandemic or such a recession kind of situation happens in, but also look at an opportunity to to bounce back as fast as possible once things becomes normal. And I think I'm just really wanting to connect this whole new hybrid model, hybrid life, way of life here in the corporate. I think is really going to help us in a way that it will make us more agile, it will make us more resilient, and help us to basically, be very quick to the market, right? I think that's really going to help us deliver all of those things. If we are able to plan ourselves and apply ourselves at this point of time, this is a time now. It's a time actually to start putting, building blocks immediately. It's second opportunity.
So if I might ask you, so traditionally, if you look at Indians, they have been brought up with the notion of having a stable job or a stable career. So do you think skilled and specialized labor would be comfortable in a gig setup?
Sure. So, I know it's a change of a mindset, but at the same time, all the more important for people to know outside, one, you have a job. I mean, that itself is something which most of the people have a question mark right now, because with the things which has been happening right now, we see and we get to hear a lot of things where companies are laying out, or they are rebadging, or something or the other is happening, or they are moving out the entire processes, outsourcing it. With that, I think this is one relief for people to think that we have a job. But at the same time, when you look at a gig side or as a full-time job, I feel that both of it has its pros and cons. And that's what someone has to evaluate. Now, being at a gig side, you are aware in the fixed term process or a fixed contract, you're aware that what is that you have to bring up. Now, when you compare it with the full-time job, you are probably aware that this is something, your vision could be a 1-year vision, a 2-year vision, or a 3-year vision. You can have those long-term vision or your goals. But with the gig, you are aware that this is what my project is, and it is limited to that specific output. With which I believe it's, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's about a mindset. If I have that mindset that I'm comfortable delivering it in such way, I can actually handle multiple gigs at one time. Whereas with the full time, it's quite obvious that I can do one job at a time. It could be either the clauses, or it could also be the bandwidth I may have to do certain other things. So it's, as I mentioned, it has its all pros and cons.
So Arpita, there could be many new roles in HR which could be emerging. Few of the thought what we have put across is that HR could be termed as HR head for work from home development, head of human machine integrations, head of workplace design, head of gig workforce management. So do you see that these can become a reality?
Yes, Ajoy, it's a very interesting discussion to begin with, of course. And at the same time, with the way things have been changing around us, and very rapidly so, I don't see any of these not becoming reality in the times to come. So it's once again about upskilling and reskilling ourselves as HR leaders. Who knows, maybe, Ekta, Saurav, or I could be, as of now, we are all donning probably all of these hats all at the same time. Probably while we are, not terming those in the very right or in the correct way at this point in time, probably all of us are doing more or less quite a lot of those specific roles in our own capacities. And in the times to come, the way, total rewards has become a reality in the current times, we might have a head of the work from home or something of that sort. We may have something very similar to somebody who is managing the culture for the in-house staff, as well as for the contingent staff or the remote working staff. We could have all of these roles becoming a reality in the times to come. The only question for us to get an answer to is, when does that happen? How soon or how late? But we are in a very interesting phase of transition right now. A lot of things have already changed. A lot of things are changing as we speak, and a lot of things are going to change in the future as well. So I think for HR professionals, this is a phase of course, a lot of stress, but at the same time, a lot of opportunity as well. When we look back, say after 10 or 15 years or so, once the dust of the pandemic settles down, once we look back, I think there would be a lot of learning that all of us would have bagged by then. There would be a lot of we would probably take pride in a lot of decisions that we would be taking right now, and which would really shape the way the organizations are perceived in future, the way the organizations are branded in future, the way the organizations are looked at as social entities rather than becoming the profit making entities only. So at this point in time, I see employees are looking at employers to be much more than just employers. They are looking towards the employers to be able to understand them at this point in time, and take different kind of decisions, or have a scope for different kind of interventions, which not only takes care of their work, the growth in that job, but also to take one step ahead and make sure that they themselves and their families at large are safe, and they are doing well. Right now, I think all of us together are striving towards building a more resilient workforce as we speak. A workforce which is not only healthy, they are safe and are also employed uh, as of now, as we speak, and for as long as possible. As Ekta was mentioning, that most of the people right now are really worried whether they would be continuing with the jobs that they are currently in. I suppose that is also that adds to the worry, of course, and that is also something which a lot of organizations are doing right now, to look back if they can rehire people, if they can take back the furloughed employees. And there are organizations which are also looking at figuring out if the people who have been laid off are can be rehired, or can be engaged with different organizations as we speak. So a lot of different interventions are happening around us, and it is all about it is the right time that all of us bring in all the resources, efforts, and make it more productive and a more giving kind of an environment.
Absolutely. Saurabh, so with all these changes which is happening, do you see there would be lesser jobs in the country in next 1 year's time?
No, on the contrary, there will be more number of jobs actually in the country. I feel because there we are. That's what we are discussing right now. I mean, it's not. See, job is not about being hired for 9 hours and multiply by 30 number of days. I think it's about being engaged. That's more important, and that's what I think is going to be the future, because people are highly professional, and in this corporate world, you see every year there are a lot of millennials which are just getting added into the entire task force, right? There is a very different breed. This young age millennials, they have a very different way of working, right? I mean, you trust me, it is very difficult to make them loyal. It's very difficult to bind them to your company, right? You really got to be very good, very great in terms of engagement, or taking care of them, constantly giving them learning and development opportunities and all. That may still not be good enough for you to hold them, right? If that's the kind of ecosystem is getting built all around us, those are the people who will not be satisfied in delivering 9 hours and doing what they are supposed to do. I think that's not what they are going to be doing over a period of time. I think they would be more getting towards what in the Western countries we are seeing right now, where far more number of people are taking multiple gig assignments and taking the best use of the available number of hours they have in a week. They decide how many hours they want to work in that week, what's the kind of money they want to make in that week, and then put a stop to it when they feel now it's my time. So I think this also gives them an opportunity to do a lot of work-life balance, which is an in word, and more so with the millennials. So I think over a period of time, what I see is that there will be a huge amount of opportunity for people to actually get engaged, provided people are able to see beyond this. They are able to see beyond the traditional job. They're able to see beyond what it is about giving an interview, get an assignment. No, I think if you're able to see, understand your potential, understand what you're good at, I think the sky is the limit. There are so many opportunities. You can get engaged and keep delivering on a daily basis, or may not deliver it for the next, let's say, one complete fortnight. So that's the call which people have to take. But opportunities are going to be immense.
Okay. So it's on the same line. So do you see the average wages getting affected? Do you see it coming down in next 8, 10 months, 12 months? Do you see wages having any sort of any effect?
Wages, I mean, you are asking about the compensation, any impact on that, right?
Yes.
Well, I see.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I see that companies are rather coming up and adding a lot of benefits as a part of the compensation. Apparently, the compensation is actually not decreasing. I would rather say that in its own way, they're trying to figure out how can we maximize people in hand, either by giving them a raise or by adding certain benefits to it. It could be those fringe benefits, it could be those medical benefits. So companies are looking at investing on some of these things, which I would say. So it's actually not a decrease in the compensation, wherein I would say that from an employee-centric perspective, people are now become really mindful about how to retain their current workforce. And with that, compensation is actually a key strategy which they are playing right now. So evolving around it when it comes to doing some of those market benchmarking. Earlier days, it used to be once in a while for the critical resources, whereas I'll say that now it has become a quarterly affair. So within our own company, we know that there are roles for which we do a quarterly benchmarking, just to ensure that we are either above the market or whichever percentile we want to decide to be at. But every company is trying to do their bit. And as I mentioned, compensation is actually a key strategy to retain people at present.
Last question from my side, and I would like all three of you, your reaction to it. So we'll start with Arpita. So do you think in your business, there will be a certain percentage of your workforce which can or which will permanently be working from home?
I think yes, it is. As in one of the earlier discussions, I mentioned that earlier, which did not seem to be happening, is seeming to be the only option right now. I think it can very easily be extrapolated to the fact that a set of the workforce remains to be working from home at least for a long duration of time. And there can be a set of people, of course, who for whom the job roles are such that they cannot be working from home, so they continue to be working from the premises, and the rest of the people can continue to work as remote workforce.
What about you, Saurabh? How is it in your?
See, Ajoy, I don't know about when you say permanent. I have a restrictions because the time is changing. It's very dynamic. 18 months back, we really did not know what we are doing right now, that will be able to come and face this situation and do what we are doing right now. So it is very difficult to say whether permanent it is possible or not. But yes, in every organization, I see there are a lot of roles which will have an opportunity to deliver 100% through this channel of work from home. There is a possibility, right? I mean, there's no two ways about it. Yeah, but it's also depend. See, it's about also how soon companies can adapt to this change and come over this traditional fear of basically this fear of performance deterioration, which happens by way of doing this work from home. Situation may get I'm sure this will get normal. However, companies will have to adapt to this and continue to reap the benefits which we have seen over a period of last 18 months with work from home. And if they want, they can really put few roles for a longer duration of time to operate from work from home, and with constant coaching, mentoring, and hand holding, I think they'll be able to deliver the necessary output. That's this possibility.
So, Ekta?
Sure. So as Saurabh mentioned, I mean, it's kind of a very dynamic environment. We are not really sure that how things are going to be placed in future. But at this point in time, even before the second pandemic, we were in conversation of operating as a hybrid model. It's going to be more as a hot desking system where we definitely don't want everyone to be in office at once. It's going to be like the team basis. The people are going to decide on their convenience, what would be the days when they're going to be there joining in as a team. But at the same time, we have been flexible about people working from home. So if there are people, they are staying with their elderly parents or kids, we were okay that if they want to continue to work from home, they can do that. And that's how we are even looking at in future, like we may open offices when things are going to settle. But at the same time, that flexibility will always be there with people. If they prefer to work from home, that they can choose to do that.
I want to add another thing here, Ajoy. See, largely in the last 18 months, what this also pandemic has taught us is that, when people were working from home and still trying to deliver, and I just spoke about, the performance where we have seen a good amount of business recovery in Q3 and Q4. Let's not forget it's the same people on the job, but not in the traditional way of working in the office and in the conference room, discussing the strategy, fighting it out, making a weekend plan and delivering it. They're doing all of these activities, but from their own homes. And they've delivered much better than what was anticipated when the whole pandemic first wave started. So I think it's not really about, work from home or not work from home. It's about the result which each individual will produce and the impact it will have on the business. I think those parameters are largely going to be the determining factor. What can be assigned as work from home, what cannot be assigned as work from home. Largely it depends upon what result you will deliver and what impact it will have on the business. I think those are very important things. That's what I think.
Sure.
So I'll pick up a few questions which are there, which has been asked by the participants. So the first question is, Arpita ma'am, can you share some mental wellness tasks HR can perform for their employees?
There can be constant coaching and mentoring, which every manager should take up, should be shouldering the responsibilities of. That can be a very organic way of making sure that people are fine, and we at least get to know how if they are going through any kind of an exigency at any given point in time. That apart, there are various organizations who are working very actively right now towards providing solutions, towards providing different levels of counseling to people in case they have any kind of issues that they are going through. Very recently, we ourselves got some help through external agencies, wherein they came to help quickly, and they help us to provide a solution in the given circumstances. Of course, there is still that thought process that people are not very eager to open up if they are not feeling too well as far as the mental health is concerned. But I think slowly the thought process is changing. People are coming out of their shells and are able to open up. And we need to, as organizations, we need to be preemptive about these kind of issues, more so in the current times, and be able to align ourselves to these kind of help. Not always that the HR or the line managers can be of help, because there can be situations which are completely out of our bounds, because we are not so we are not equipped to understand the nuances of the situation, and hence it is the right thing to have an organization handy with you that can come to your assistance. And there are different kind of assistance that they provide. There can be telephonic interventions, there can be chat interventions. You can, of course, not right now, but you could also in the earlier times, you could also walk up to the centers and talk to them. It's many a times just speaking about how you're feeling or what is really bothering you. Sometimes that speaking up or opening up also helps an individual in such a situation.
So I think, Saurabh, this is to you. In retail, how can we boost the morality for supply chain department, such as warehouse and logistic employees during this pandemic? The reference is to the frontline employees.
Can you just repeat the first part of it, Ajoy?
In retail, how can we boost the morality for supply chain department, such as warehouse and logistic employees during this pandemic? The reference is to the frontline employees.
Yeah, see, I can understand the question is coming from, because that one department or one team where work from home is really not possible, because you really got to be on the floor and working it out, reaching out to the bins and getting the product, packing it, binning it. I think while the world has changed, not much has changed when it comes to the ground level people working in the warehouses. So I think it is really important right now. There's a larger need for the HR teams to take a lot of engagement activities and reach out to the supply chain team and engage them at multiple levels, give them some time out, make them, it is important to give them a feeling that they are far more important, which they truly are, because supply chain is the backbone of any organization. I think it is time to reach out and tell them that your time and your effort and your energy is equally valuable to us. And I also want to add, one can always look at also the non-conventional way of letting this fatigue go, right? I mean, to whatever Arpita said, plus one to that, and then also one can also go to the some yoga. Yeah, one can also adapt pranayama, meditations. I think this really helps. I see a lot of youngsters these days taking a lot of time out, my time, and they're going and they're spending in actually doing all of these activities, and they're really coming back seemingly very sharply focused, very centric. And I think in supply chain there is larger requirement of adapting to some of these engagement activities and making sure that their morale and motivation is kept at very high levels.
So it's another question. In the current pandemic, how can a mid-sized companies or company has overcome the startup stage and financially help the employees who are affected by COVID?
Sure. So, well, most of the companies are actually trying their bit, whatever they can do. But I can share what, as a company, we have done recently. We have recently announced the emergency fund for the employees and their families. There's a fund which is being kept aside, and as and when there's an emergency in an employee or at the dependent side, release that fund. That's one thing which the companies are doing to try to support their employees financially. At the same time, which was like last year, because we also work with the captain. So that point in time, there was also some of these fundraising activities, which was initiated by Rapido. So Rapido definitely has put in some funds from their side, and we also invited people who are interested to do that. And basis that, it has reached to the captain's family. That point in time when we were last year actually in the complete lockdown. And we still, right now, we still are, we see still these vehicles are moving outside. The essential services are still up, but that was a time when essential services were also not working and government was trying their bit. And that's where companies were also trying their bit to whatever they can do and contribute to the employees and families. So this is what at present, and it's not just related to the company I am associated at present. I have seen outside in the market, there are various companies who are trying to do that, but they're trying to put in some of these vaccinations in place, free of cost vaccination to their employees, even if it is a cost where at least they are trying to arrange the vaccinations at first place for the employees and families. Like we've been saying, we are also reaching out to the ex-employees and their families. So how can we maximize the reach is one thing, that how can we reach out to each and every person and make sure that what we can do, while government may try to do their bit, but what is that as an individuals, as an organization, we can contribute is what also companies are trying to do.
So there's another question that how many of your guest workers have left because of the second wave? So anybody wants to pick up?
Sure, Ajoy. In the e-commerce sector, there is a set of employees who are who are the contingent workers, who are the contractual workers, to say so. We do see a lot of churn in that particular workforce, and understandably so, because a lot of people are either infected right now, their family members, and the reasons can be umpteen. So we do see a lot of churn, but a lot of times we also see that a lot of people do come back once the situation at their end get back to normal. We also see a lot of people returning to the workplace. To add to just what Ekta mentioned, there are a lot of medical insurance related interventions that we have also taken, especially keeping the operations frontliners in mind. So there are different kind of funds which we have taken for the people. We have ensured that all the COVID insurance coverage is given out to the employees as well as their families. It not only covers the permanent staff but also the contingent staff. However, since there is a lot of churn, so that is slightly difficult to achieve. But yes, I think as far as your question goes, we do see a lot of churn, and we are able to sort of manage through the scenario by making sure that the required number of workforce is present at all times, so that there is lower levels of burnout in the permanent staff in the same spectrum.
Okay, so recently there was a wage code model which was government wanted to bring into effect, but now it has deferred the timelines. So do you guys feel that the gig workforce would have got affected by the new wage code model in any way? Do any one of you have any view on that?
I have a limited knowledge on this, Ajoy, but I read one article, or when the budget release happened, I was going through that, and I recall that finance minister allowed of the standard compliance which we do for the standard workforce. I think the ESIC is something which is a mandatory for the gig workforce. However, the PF and all of those other benefits are still not available for gig workforce when it comes to the normal traditional. But having said that, but how they make it up is basically there are a lot of things which they do. Like one is that ESIC which I just spoke about. They anyways are getting access to that. But also with the way they are now assigned themselves and engaged with multiple assignments. I think they are also getting the best of that availability of the time availability what they have. However, it will always have a concern over a period of time. In fact, that article was also saying that if this gig has to continue over a period of time, government will have a problem, because then you will have a huge amount of workforce which is retired and they don't have the backup. So there is a challenge in that, no doubts about it. But I think, if you really look at what's happening across the world right now, US and Europe, this thing, gigs, I was just going through, I don't recall, but I think 120 or 130 million, somewhere close to this amount of workforce are already adopted to gig workforce. Those are the number of people who are now taken up this gig assignments, and they're getting the best out of these opportunities right now. That the data is purely Western side, not for India. So with that kind of surge happening, I'm sure it will have to see the the opportunity here in India also coming up, this thing, and government will have to then take it up very, very firmly on this.
Okay. So another one is, would organization have an antibiotic reaction to any arrangement which is permanent in nature? Uh, for example, office lease, permanent employees, compensation, etc. Ekta, you want to take it?
I didn't get the question clearly.
So so question is that would organizations have an antibiotic reaction to it? So something which is permanent in nature, do organization want to do anymore? Like, would organization want to go for an office lease, which is going to be a long term, which is going to be 3 to 5 years commitment? Permanent employees again, which again long term commitment. Do you feel there could be office or organization might not want to go for such sort of setups?
So, well, I see that with the current pandemic, definitely there has been changes in the thought process at an organization level where people are involved, either in the policy making or in the benefits announcements. On the policy sides, definitely I would say that when we talk about some of these leave related policies, they have kind of revamped in every other organization. There are probably separate leaves when it comes to the COVID leaves. I mean, in our organization also, we have launched this as in 12 days of a leave for an employee, or even if a family member is infected and they want to take care of that. Apart from it, these are the leaves where we are not really restricting that it can be once in an annual, because you cannot really control that part for an employee, that how many times the person can get affected or how many times a family member can get affected. So that's where I see that the companies are kind of very lenient about some of these things, because these are kind of a human aspect which we all take care of. So that's one. Apart from it, on the benefit side, we do, we talk about these COVID insurance, we talk about these do's and don'ts, we talk about vaccination drives, we talk about post-vaccination drives. All of this has been started coming in picture. Now, when we talk about what is going to happen in the long term, I see that change is inevitable. We're all adapting to the change. We don't know what is going to happen in future related to pandemic, but I'm sure that as and when we see the change, we all have to adapt to it. And apparently I see that this is actually a time wherein we being in HR is actually have an opportunity to try new things out there and understand that what is that is going to work out for our current workforce. And when we say current workforce, I also see that outside in every other organization, they're not just accounting their fixed term employees. They're talking about their contractor employees. They're talking about their families. So the extension has happened to the level where every other human is getting affected, or every other human can get an impact of whatever we are trying to launch for an organization perspective. So I see that change is going to bring in new aspects of these policies, new aspects of these benefits. And this is something which is going to continue to transform the culture we want to drive in each of an organization.
Also, Ajoy, you see some bit of antibiotic reaction is inevitable when you have a situation like this. Yeah, because when we are talking about large bit of population within the organization is now work from home, there is no point holding on to the workplace for them in the infrastructure. I think it is all the more relevant and viable that organizations surrender back that space, office lease space, back to the landlord and become more prudent and I think it's not about being antibiotic. I think it's about being logical, right? Because the cash flow is important, because at this point of time, so it is really important that you become productive. And productivity is not just about top line; it's also about how do you save. Money save is money, and I think it's really important that if you're not using that infra, it is all the more viable to give it back, surrender it back to the landlord, and thereby become more, prudent in terms of managing your cash flow.
True. Okay, we have few more questions. So next is, how can HR encourage employee contribute their best during work from home in retail or in e-commerce or in any other office? While working at office was a different way of work where managers are kept accountable, but during work from home, managers have an additional task, which might lead employees think they are micromanaged. how to help managers in this case and have a win-win situation. Anybody can pick it.
Ajay, I would like to take that. See, yes, it is. There are definitely two ways to every discussion, and the same is true where employees may feel that they are being micromanaged, or they are, or how would they be guided towards becoming more productive and to stay motivated. See, in my view, it is a very, very personal approach. Every manager has his or her own ways of managing the team, managing the resources in the team. And once again, it's not one size fits all. You cannot be dealing with all the people in the team in the same way. There has to be different ways of approach towards every individual. I say yes, the dynamics of working remotely has added probably to a certain extent to the difficulty of managing teams right now. But at the same time, it is not something which cannot be done. I think a lot of people, a lot of organizations are very successfully doing that. In the last 1 year, we have transitioned, we have adapted, and we have also learned the right ways of doing things in a certain way. It is always better to look forward to somebody else's success and learn from those. And I think at the organization levels, what organizations can do is to probably provide some sort of programs, so some sort of interventions for maybe new managers or first time managers, as it would have done in the regular setup also, so that they transform into more maybe so to say better managers, or they are able to manage the team situations better. I think that's the only way. Otherwise, I don't see any difference between, not much of a difference between working from home or working from office as far as managing teams or keeping them motivated is concerned.
Thanks, Akita. Okay, so I'll take this as the last question, then we'll try and wrap up. Sorry, a couple of more. So for COVID affected employees, will it be considered as paid leave or loss of pay? Is there any law which has come into force?
Well, I think it's a paid leave. It's not really a loss of pay. All the companies are introducing the paid leave as a COVID leave. I haven't really seen a circular around it from a labor department, which has gone to the organizations. But I think it's kind of, when we're introducing these leaves, none of the organization would call it a loss of pay because it's a benefit which we're giving to an employee. So by default, it's a paid leave.
Yeah, more so on the humanitarian aspect of Joy. I think most of the organizations are doing it proactively, even though there is no rule or a circular around it. I think most of the organizations, I suppose it would not be wrong to say that all the organizations are giving it as a paid leave right now.
Yeah, agreed. So next one, during this pandemic, any new hire will be virtually onboarding? How a mid-size or startup can build such a process?
Well, I'll take that question. I mean, from the past 1 year, or rather, I would say 1.5 years, all the new employees have been onboarded virtually. So not even a single employee who has come to office, because of course, there is no such setup which we have put in office. We wanted our employees' safety to be first. So everything has been taken care of virtually. There has been no such challenges, I would say. Apparently, it has been a good experience for employees, because now at one place during the induction session, also when the group of leaders joins in, then they share their part of the story or their part of the department insights. Everything is kind of very digital and streamlined process for the companies. So well, that experience I see is much better than what it used to be. That point in time where people used to really run after paperwork and figure out the timelines with folks to get them in the room and doing the classroom trainings and all of that. It's much, much better. And I see that somewhere the adoption on the digital side of the things have kind of improved, which wasn't there earlier. When we used to talk about, oh, you have to do the digital signatures, people used to scratch their head and it's like, how do we do that? Do we need an app for it? Do we need a signature thing which we have to download for it? But I think it's been that people are now becoming tax savvy a lot. And this is, I think, one positive side which I can see have come out of the pandemic.
You see, this together coffee time is missing, I feel, right? A lot of these new joinees. See, a lot of relationship building happens not just the way by we do meetings and talk to each other work-wise, but it also how we talk, what do we discuss and share with each other when we together go for a coffee break. So I think that's a very, very important part in growing together, working together.
That's true. That's
that is
true.
missing.
Yeah, but we kind of, yeah, sorry.
So sorry, so sorry.
I said we're trying to create, even if we try to create that culture, let's say we have a coffee session, so we have these lunch sessions, virtual lunch session. They're not really the lunch sessions or a coffee sessions. People are sitting with whatever they want to sit with, sometimes even in their pajamas. And then we talk out some of the things, and then it's just kind of a connect we're able to establish, but not really per se a coffee session or a lunch session with the folks.
Yeah. A lot of people say, once we are getting back to office, we'll go Starbucks, we'll go there, we'll have coffee first. That's the plan. It's not about anything else. Not about, we have to discuss that part first. That's long pending. Let's discuss that. It's about, where we want to hang out first once we are out of this.
Now, these small things have actually become a dream for people to do that.
Actually, I think most of us are missing those water cooler conversations, which usually happens. We have been a little proactive or a little diligent in making sure that there are those tea time gupshups, which teams are doing. But as you very rightly said, Ekta, that the real fun of meeting people and interacting with them only happens when you are meeting them in person. I think that's how we have been for so many years. To adapt to new technology and new scenarios, it's possible, but you definitely feel the tinge that something is missing out.
Thanks. So with that, we'll close the session. Thanks, Saurabh. Thanks, Arpita. Thanks, Ekta, for your time, for taking the questions and answering. Thanks, audience. Thanks for coming and asking such wonderful set of questions and making this interactive session rather than a one-sided just me speaking and you just listening. Thank you for participating in the